Imagine a huge tank of oil, the size of a football field and 100 feet tall. During this half hour together, the world will use the energy equivalent of 5 football field-sized tanks of oil 100 feet tall. That's a lot of energy. But during the same time, the sun will shower the earth with the energy equivalent of 38,000 football field-sized tanks of oil. That's a huge amount of energy. Yet only a tiny fraction of the energy radiated by the sun hits the earth, about 1/1000th of the total. From a human perspective, the sun is unimaginably powerful. The awesome forces of nature are powered by a daily dose of sunlight, and the human economy can be powered by sunlight too. When I say solar energy, I mean solar energy in all its forms. Solar electricity, solar heat, wind energy, hydroelectric energy, energy from moving water, and biomass energy, which is derived from plants. The sun is the driving force behind all these energy sources. The sun heats parts of the earth differently, causing the winds to blow, and the sun drives the hydrological cycle that is the basis of hydroelectric power. There are financial benefits and satisfaction that come from using this green energy, solar and wind, that you capture at home. Remember the definition of sustainability from the first lecture: meeting the needs of the present generation without diminishing the ability of future generations to meet their needs. In order to leave opportunities for future generations, we need a source of high-quality, concentrated energy to offset the effects of entropy. Solar energy is what nature uses to offset the effects of entropy. Plants take sunlight and create order and structure through biology. People also use solar energy. For the last 100 years, we've been using solar energy in the form of fossil fuels to power our economy. There is a limited supply of fossil fuels, however. Not only are they a finite resource, we've also learned that burning them up creates problems for us and future generations, including pollution and global warming. So the direction in which sustainable living looks is to the sun. This device, called a parabolic mirror, takes 1 square meter of sunlight and concentrates it to the size of a silver dollar. 8 minutes ago, these flames were thermonuclear energy on the surface of the sun, transmitted across 94 million miles of empty space. It's wirelessly distributed across half the planet at any point in time, and it hasn't missed a day on the job in billions of years. It's 94 million miles away, yet it feels warm to the side of your face and is too bright to look at. Every day, the sun delivers 14,000 times more energy than the human economy uses. I'd like to show you some of the ways that energy flows around us and how we can make use of it as it flows from a high-quality source to a high-entropy sink. A high-quality source is a source of energy, like the sun, that is at a high temperature relative to its surroundings and is capable of doing many kinds of work. A high-entropy sink is where energy leaves the system, no longer able to do any useful work. I'm not saying that all of these are practical methods for generating useful amounts of energy. I just want to expand your thinking about energy. Here's our first one. Let's say that I'm living in a remote cabin and I want a little energy to run an MP3 player and an LED light. I look around and I find a potato, a galvanized nail, and some copper wire. What good will that do me? Well, let's see what happens if I hook these up and measure it with a meter. Do I get any energy from this? I do. I see I get about 0.8 volts per potato. If I hook 2 potatoes together, I can get 1.6 volts, about the voltage of a AA battery, enough to run my MP3 player and maybe an LED light. It's also enough energy to run this clock. Okay, let's try another way to generate energy. And this one has actually been used in some really interesting ways. A thermoelectric device uses the junction between 2 different materials to generate electricity. Heat one side of the junction and cool the other, and you get electricity with no moving parts. When you put electricity to the device, one side gets hot and the other gets cold. It's a weird sensation to have something this thin between your fingers that is simultaneously hot and cold. Ouch. But if I heat one side of this and I cool the other, it'll make electricity. This has been used to generate energy in some innovative ways. During World War II, the Soviet Army was looking for a silent way to generate electricity to run radios. Generator noise allowed Germans to find them. They developed silent thermoelectric generators, which were used after the war on the chimneys of kerosene lamps in order to power radios in remote cabins. The generator that runs the electronics and lights in your car eats up a mile or two per gallon of your gas mileage. One company has figured out a way to eliminate the generator in cars and trucks by using a thermoelectric device on the exhaust. With billions of miles driven every year, this could add up to a lot of energy saved. What if your clothes were made of this material? One side would be heated to 98.6 by your body and the other would be cooled in the atmosphere. It could generate energy from the temperature difference between your body and the environment. You could charge your cell phone from the difference between room temperature and your body. Have you ever been up on a hot metal roof in the summertime? You could make thermoelectric metal roofing to put the temperature difference between a hot roof and the atmosphere to use. Some crystals make electricity when squeezed or stressed. This is called the piezoelectric effect. This lighter has a piezoelectric crystal that generates the spark that ignites it. When I pull the trigger, a little hammer hits the crystal, stressing it and creating electricity. In England, the parking lot of a supermarket uses piezoelectric material. The weight of cars driving over it stresses the material and it produces enough electricity to power the lights in the parking lot. This effect is responsible for some kinds of lightning during earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Forces in the earth stress crystals in the earth's crust and produce lightning. A sustainable approach to life and community design focuses attention on the myriad ways in which energy is constantly and dependably flowing around us. There is energy all around us, flowing from source to sink in thousands of ways, and we can make use of it as it flows. We've really just begun to scratch the surface of all the ways in which we can harness all this energy. Now that we have an idea of the big picture of energy in the universe, let's talk about using it efficiently. It doesn't mean freezing in the dark. The goal is to use energy smarter, getting our hot showers and cold beer with far less energy than we do now. How much energy reduction is possible? With off-the-shelf technology, it's possible to reduce energy consumption by 75% or more and still provide the same or better services. My home uses less than 100 kilowatt hours per month. The average home uses 1,000. Even though I am somewhat of a geek, with a shop, music studio, large flat screen TV, and a full complement of kitchen appliances, I use 1/10 the energy of a conventional home, a 90% reduction. Let's talk about some ways you can begin to use energy more wisely in your home. The first step is to figure out how much energy you use. What percentage of your monthly bill goes to lighting, electronics, or the fridge? What percentage provides no useful service to you at all? This takes some detective work. I use a $20 device called a kilowatt to help with this. The kilowatt plugs into the wall, then you plug an appliance into the kilowatt. That's it. It measures the flow of energy into the appliance, and it's particularly useful for figuring the total energy used by things like fridges that turn on and off all day long. Heating, cooling, hot water, refrigeration, and lighting use about 75% of a typical home energy bill. These days, we use a lot of electronics, but electronics use only 10 to 15% of home electrical energy use. Here's a parable that illustrates the power of energy efficiency and how energy efficiency can be seen as a source of energy. Let's say that you're the mayor of a town that has a remote water supply that is connected by a set of leaky pipes, and only 10% of the water that starts toward town gets there. The rest leaks out. The town is growing, and you need more water. You could put in more powerful pumps to send more water to town, and even more water would be wasted as leaks. Or you could simply fix the leaks and have all the water you want without pumping any more water. Similarly, if we need new energy capacity, energy efficiency can free up existing generating capacity for use by new customers. In this way, energy efficiency can be seen as a source of energy, what Amory Lovins calls negawatts. About 2/3 of the energy that flows through the economy is wasted. By using energy efficiently and putting the savings towards renewables, we can save enough money as a society to convert to solar energy, and we can do it at a profit. One way to maximize energy savings is to use an integrated design process. In an integrated design process, each element is evaluated for what it can contribute to the whole. In this way, larger energy savings sometimes cost less than smaller energy savings, cutting through the law of diminishing returns. Here's an example. Let's say that you're analyzing the cost savings of adding additional insulation. The first 3 inches of insulation save $100. Doubling the insulation to 6 inches cuts the heat loss in half, saving $50. Sounds good. Let's double the insulation level again from 6 to 12 inches. Again, this cuts heat loss in half, but now the savings is only $25. So let's take a look at this. The first 3 inches saved $100. The second 3 inches saved $50, and the next 6 inches saved only $25. The next 12 inches would only save $12.50. So conventional design philosophy would say that at some point, the cost of the additional insulation is going to be more than the savings, and you should quit adding insulation at this point. But we are only analyzing the insulation. If we look at the house as a whole, it might be that the final increment of 12 inches of insulation makes heat loss so low that you can eliminate the furnace. And the savings from downsizing or eliminating the furnace could pay for all of the insulation, saving more money with a shorter payback than just considering the insulation alone. Now that we know a little about using energy efficiently and wisely, let's look at generating electricity from renewable sources. There are 3 basic renewable energy technologies to consider for home use: solar electric, solar thermal, and wind. For most, solar electric and solar thermal have the widest application. Let's take a look at solar electric systems. There are 2 basic kinds of systems: grid-tied and off-grid. Grid-tied systems put solar energy on the grid, offsetting energy you would have purchased from the power company. 99% of the systems installed today are grid-tied systems. Energy flows from the sun to a solar panel, where it is converted into electricity. For a grid-tied system, in addition to solar panels, you need a device that matches solar panel output to the utility grid, called an inverter. The inverter plugs into your electric system like any other appliance, but rather than using energy from the grid, it produces energy from your solar panels and uploads it to the power grid. Grid-tied systems don't require regular maintenance or management, but they do have one disadvantage. When the utility grid is down, your system can't generate energy even when the sun is shining. If the main reason for installing solar is to have power during utility outages, you'll want a system that can operate independently from the grid. So let's look at grid-independent or off-grid systems next. Grid-independent systems require batteries that store solar energy for use at night and on cloudy days. In addition to solar panels and an inverter, you will need batteries and a charge controller. Off-grid systems are more expensive and require more management than grid-tied systems. But the solar power from an off-grid system isn't limited by existing infrastructure or the needs of electric companies. So you can get energy where utility power is not available. Where utility power is available, you can disconnect completely, or you can remain hooked to the grid. Staying hooked to the grid allows excess energy generated by your system to be used by others on the grid. The grid can also be used as backup when the sun isn't shining. Being off-grid connects you to the flow of energy in nature in ways that a grid-tied system can't. The disadvantage is that this requires more management and the careful use of energy in times when it isn't sunny. How much does all this cost? For years, we've been waiting for the price of solar technology to drop. But since 2010, the price of solar panels has plummeted by a factor of 3, and solar panels now come with 25-year warranties. The good news is that solar energy is now affordable for many, with 3 to 15-year paybacks. In some areas, companies will even install solar panels on your roof with no upfront cost. They make money by selling you power at a discount from utility rates. Solar panels convert energy from the sun into electricity with no moving parts. Nothing is used up in the process. Solar panels last a long time, and they often have 25-year warranties. The breakthroughs we've been waiting for are here. Solar energy is now cheap, reliable, and in use on millions of rooftops, even in areas of the world like Germany that only get half as much solar energy as the United States. For about the price of an overpriced daily latte, you can put enough solar electric power on your roof to offset your electric bill. And you don't even have to give up the latte. The solar electric system will pay for itself in utility bill savings. It's possible to save enough money on your bill through efficiency to pay for the monthly payment on a solar energy system. Let's use a thought experiment to illustrate this. Let's say that you want to power the lights in your house with solar energy. Let's say that it would take 10 $500 solar panels to power a home that uses incandescent lights. That's $5,000 worth of panels. A few years ago, incandescent lights were replaced by compact fluorescents, which use 1/4 of the energy and last up to 10 times longer. If you light your home with compact fluorescents, all of a sudden it only takes 1/4 the number of panels, or 2.5 panels. That's only $1,250 worth of panels. Solar's looking a lot better. Now, compact fluorescent lights are being replaced by LED lights, which use even less energy, last 5 to 10 times longer than fluorescents, and are easier to dispose of. And if you switch to LED lights, it would only take 1 panel, and the money you save on the energy by using the LED bulb would pay for the panel. This is an example of low-hanging fruit growing back. New generations of technology keep getting more efficient, enabling new rounds of retrofitting and money saving. Once again, sustainability is a process, not an end goal. Many people have installed systems themselves, and thousands of companies have sprung up to meet the demand for solar energy. If you don't want to do it yourself, chances are you can find someone qualified to set up solar near where you live. So let's figure out how much solar you need. Doing a preliminary assessment to see if solar makes sense for you involves just a little basic math. Let's take a look at a design for Austin, Texas. Once you understand this example, you should be able to use the map and do a back-of-the-envelope analysis almost anywhere in the US. The process involves figuring out how many kilowatts of solar you need to meet your annual energy needs, pricing the system, and figuring a simple payback. The map shows that a kilowatt of solar in Austin would produce 1,300 kilowatt hours in an average year. Find out how much energy you used last year by looking up your electric bills or calling your utility. Let's say that you used 10,000 kilowatt hours last year, which is the national average. Divide 10,000 kilowatt hours by 1,300 kilowatt hours per kilowatt, and you get 7.3 kilowatts of solar needed. A kilowatt of solar covers about 100 square feet, so the system would cover about 730 square feet of roof. Now let's assume solar costs are around $2,500 per kilowatt. So the system would cost 7.3 kilowatts times $2,500 per kilowatt, or $18,000. Assuming that you can take advantage of incentives like tax credits and utility rebates that cover 50% of the system cost, the net cost of the system would be $9,000. Incentives include a 30% federal tax credit. In some locations, incentives can pay 75% of the cost of the system. Incentives are constantly changing, and you will need to do some research to find out what the incentives are in your area. Assuming a cost of 12 cents per kilowatt hour, you pay about $1,200 per year for the 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity that you use. Take the $9,000 system cost and divide by the $1,200 per year savings, and you get a 7.5-year payback. But after that, the energy is free. Paying cash for a PV system up front is like paying for 3 to 15 years of electricity all at once. With favorable financing and incentives, you can see savings from the first month panels are installed. After you've paid for the system and energy savings, you get free electricity for the life of the system, 25 years or more. Now, utilities charge a per-month fee to be connected to the grid, regardless of whether you consume any energy. So with grid-tied systems, it's sometimes not possible to completely eliminate your electric bill. However, your energy cost is fixed and related to the one-time cost of the equipment, not the future volatility of energy prices. You can use a different kind of solar panel to make hot water for things like bathing, washing, or to heat a pool. In the past, this was the most economical way to use solar energy. You got more energy per dollar with this technology than any other. With the drop in price of PV panels, it is not clear that this is still the case. Solar hot water systems use your existing hot water heater for backup, so you can have hot water when the sun isn't shining. Heating pools with solar energy often has a very short payback, 3 to 5 years. You can also use solar hot water or air panels to heat your home with the sun. Other ways to use solar thermal energy include water purification and solar ovens for cooking. Wind is solar energy. The sun heats parts of the earth differently, which causes winds to blow. Often when the sun isn't shining, the wind is blowing. Wind energy is an excellent complement to solar energy. I use wind and solar power in my off-grid home, along with enough batteries to power my home for about a day without sun or wind. I use a backup generator about 20 hours a year. Well, there's 8,760 hours in a year, so I'm running about 99.8% of the time on a combination of solar and wind energy. Wind energy is not as evenly distributed as solar energy, and you need a tall tower to capture the wind. Using a short tower is like putting solar panels in the shade. Some companies make wind turbines that operate like grid-tied solar electric systems. If you have a very good wind site, which is rare, you can sometimes get more energy per dollar invested with a wind system. Another disadvantage with wind turbines are their moving parts in an inconvenient location, high in the air. There are far fewer small wind turbines than solar electric systems, and there are only a couple of manufacturers that have built more than a few hundred machines. Most, but not all, wind energy machines on the market today are really prototypes that are bound to have reliability problems. I say this from hard experience. Here's a little story about one of my first off-grid wind turbines that illustrates the dynamic power of wind energy. I was so impatient and excited to see it run that I started it up without testing the controller. The controller gives a place for energy to go once the batteries are full. As soon as I turned the machine on, it started to spin and the wind began to build. In the next couple of hours, I was thrilled to see my battery bank fill with energy. Once the battery bank was full, I realized that the controller wasn't working. There was no place for the energy to go, and the wind was continuing to build. I had to turn on everything in my house and borrow electric heaters from neighbors in order to use up all the surplus wind energy and not overcharge my batteries. I ended up leaving everything on in my house for 2 days until the wind calmed and I was able to test and fix the controller. Some utilities offer programs that, for a fee, provide energy backed by wind power. The energy comes from large wind projects the utility has invested in. Using one of these programs to complement a grid-tied solar system means that even the energy you take from the grid supports the use of renewable energy. In Iowa, where I live, 25% of the state's electricity comes from large-scale wind energy projects, but the rest comes from coal and nuclear. If you want to ensure that your backup power supports renewables, subscribe to one of these programs. What if you rent, have a very shady yard, or can't put solar on your home for any one of a number of reasons? Here are a couple ways you could still use solar energy. For less than $500, you can build a small system that will power lights, home electronics, and a few appliances. The panels could be mounted outside a window or on a porch. You'll get maximum energy if it faces south, but it can still work well facing other directions. Avoid north because the sun spends most of its time in the south, east, and west. This is an excellent way to learn about the technology, and you can take it with you or sell it when you go. Here's another simple way to use solar energy. Charge your cell phone with solar energy. Connect a small 12-volt panel to a car cigarette lighter USB charger. Plug your phone into the USB port, then put the panel in the sun. You can even assemble your own solar panel. Look on the internet for directions. A second way for a home renter to support sustainable energy sources is to pay a special rate to the utility to support renewable energy, as I mentioned earlier. Some utilities allow you to pay a special rate for power, usually higher, that goes to support renewable energy. A third way is to join a community solar garden if you are lucky enough to live where they are allowed. This is a fantastic idea. Solar panels installed in a central location in a community. You can buy as few as one panel, and someone else installs and maintains it for you. You can sell it if you leave town. The output of the panel is billed as if it were installed at your house. It offsets what you would have purchased from the utility in the same way as if it was installed on your roof. Only a few places allow this. Colorado, for example, has a statewide policy allowing solar gardens. Some city-owned electric companies and co-ops, like Farmers Electric Co-op in Kelowna, Iowa, have solar gardens as well. You can even cook with solar. Here's a picture of a solar oven cooking my lunch. Other sustainable energy options to explore include solar building design, heating and cooling, transportation alternatives, and solar hot water. We'll explore all of these in future lectures. Energy is essential for sustainability, for regenerating and renewing the lost usefulness of things due to entropy. If we invest the resources needed for regeneration of nature and society, we can leave more and better options for future generations. Now I'd like to tell you a story about the power of renewable energy to create jobs and contribute to a dynamic economy. This is Troy Van Beek. He was a Navy SEAL team member for 9 years, and after he left the Navy, he went into private high-risk security. One of his jobs was as lead sniper, providing security for President Hamid Karzai, the president of Afghanistan. At one point in his life, he decided to shift from war to peace and became a student in the Sustainable Living program where I teach. As part of a program to bring renewable energy to Angoon, a remote Tlingit native Alaskan village, he and his fellow students learned the basics of installing solar panels. On graduation, he, his partner Amy, and some of his classmates started Ideal Energy, a company that installs renewable energy systems. Last year, they sold $1 million worth of solar panels in our small rural Iowa town, and this year they are on track to install more than $3 million worth of solar. We even hired them to install renewable energy systems on the new state-of-the-art Sustainable Living program building, the Schwartz-Guich Sustainable Living Center. Troy took this picture from 100 feet up on the wind tower that powers the center. As renewable energy ramps up, variations on Troy's story are being repeated thousands of times all across the country. Renewable energy technology is good enough and cheap enough so that you can create a solar-powered life today. Renewable energy has never been more affordable and reliable. Even after 23 years, I still get a deep sense of satisfaction and wonder when I listen to music, work on my computer, or read using energy that came directly from the sun. I save money. My system has paid for itself many times over. Investing in renewable energy gives peace of mind that comes from knowing your energy costs are fixed for the next 25 or more years. It's not a sacrifice to use renewable energy, it's participating in a better way of life.